from COP30, I found Elisabeth Gilmore, professor from the Carlton University. So you're an adaptation researcher. Could you tell us what you follow here?
What I'm following here is the progress on the global goal on adaptation. Right now, the parties are looking at a set of 100 indicators that a 78-person technical expert group developed for them. These indicators cover different thematic targets of adaptation and different elements of the adaptation cycle. And so I was one of those experts, and I've been watching it with a great deal of excitement to see how the parties have been responding, how they're interpreting the indicators, and how they're negotiating them into their political needs.
How interesting, and congratulations for the work that has probably been quite hard.
Oh, thank you. And I accept that on behalf of all the 78 experts. It was at times a very challenging effort, but certainly one which really did help us better understand from a technical and scientific standpoint what a collective shared understanding of adaptation and an adapted world could look like.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth.
Thank you.
We just had a panel discussion here in the Finnish pavilion with a keynote from United Nations Special Representative for Disaster Risk Reductions, the head of UNDRR, Mr. Kamal Kishore. So what were your key messages today to auditors?
My overarching message is that auditors at all levels can play a very important role in ensuring accountability, ensuring that our efforts on disaster risk reduction are indeed making a difference, making people, making communities safer from disasters across the world. Towards this end, I have three messages for the auditors. Number one, when you do performance audits in any sector, in any geography, at any level, please take into account what are the kinds of losses that are being incurred. Sometimes I feel that we are not taking full measure of what is the loss that is occurring, damages and losses, both direct and indirect, occurring from disasters. Because once we begin to track that, then we begin to see the scale of the problem. The second issue I would say is that there are now projects that are aiming to do disaster risk reduction. Let's look at the effectiveness of those. Have they reduced disaster risk in a measurable way? What is the evidence that investing in, for example, retrofitting of school buildings or hospital buildings that has led to risk reduction? And my third and final point is that it's not just enough to look at losses that have occurred in the past, but we also have to measure the risk of losses into the future, because after all, we are building resilience for the future.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kishore, and happy continuation for COP30. So, Mirey Atallah from United Nations Environment Programme and Chief of Adaptation and Resilience Branch, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. Hi.
So, always before the COP, UNEP releases the Adaptation Gap report. So what's your key takeaway from this year's report?
So, I think the key highlight in this report, and it's been the case in several previous iterations of the report, is always related to the finance chapter and to the fact that we lack finance. We have a little bit more detailed data this year in the finance chapter. But that's the core takeaway, is we need more finance flows to adaptation, and the quality of these financial flows and speed needs to be increased. The two other takeaways are in relation to the planning chapter and to the implementation chapter. Good news, in the planning chapter, we have some 87 countries that currently have a adaptation instrument, whether it's a law, a plan, a norm, and then on the implementation, things are starting to go better, but this is also because there's a lag time between when funding is approved and implementation starts delivering results. So now we are starting to see that happening. I think if I connect also the emissions gap report that we issue almost at the same time as the adaptation gap report and the adaptation gap report, the story is a little bit more sobering. The story then is around missed targets for emissions, a trajectory of emissions that is going upwards, that is not meeting the requirements for 1.5, which then implies that we will have more impacts, therefore more need for adaptation and more likelihood for losses and damages. The good news about this is that we do have the tools, we know what it takes, we know the technology is there, the solutions are there. They need to be implemented, and for that we need political will and finance, and this is the COP of implementation, so we hope it will drive that.
Thank you. Effectiveness for adaptation, and one of our panelists was Orville from Global National Network. So could you tell us what was your key message today?
Thank you, Vivian. Thanks for having me. Key message today is that Supreme Audit institutions can work closely with those in government that's doing the monitoring and evaluation programs around adaptation planning. There's a need to ensure that indicators are more forward-facing, that we're not just reporting on what has happened, but we're putting indicators that can prepare us better to speak to progress made into the future. So looking forward to strengthening that conversation around adaptation planning in countries, what is contained in the national adaptation plans, and communicating that in a clear language that everyone can understand at national and subnational levels and all the way down to communities, so that they can all play a part in reporting on progress and supporting on the development of indicators to track that progress.